The Radio Wammo Breakfast.
Game junkie, Gerard Campbell.
Possible 484 at Sunset and Ivar, 11 King, code 2.
I don't know the names of the women I've killed, but I've killed many of them. The way they look at me, the way they flinch at my touch, so be it.
LA Noire is the game we're looking at today with Gerard Campbell, game junkie at stuff.co.nz. It's a game that's not out yet. He's had a first look at it, if you will. G'day there, Gerard. I am very well. Nice to see you. And just a wee shake there in Christchurch.
Oh, yes, there was. Yes, it was a nice wee wake-up call. The old wine glasses beside me rattled a wee bit, and the old expensive wine collection just sort of shaked a wee bit.
Well, that's good to know. That's good to know that the wine is handy right there, should it be required.
No bottles broken, thankfully.
to calm the nerves. You especially went up to... did you come up to Auckland to have a look at this
Yes,
game?
I did. Yes. Rockstar came over from Sydney last week. They were doing a whole lot of media hands-off previews, which meant that you could sit and see what was going on. And one of their handlers sounds like a dog.
Handlers, yeah.
One of their staffers played the game, and then you just got to look at what LA Noire was all about. And I understand that a trailer's been released today, and that it's releasing on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 on May 20 for Europe. So I would suspect that would be fairly close to that date as well. But it's shaping up really nicely, It's
Now these are the guys who do Grand Theft Auto and Red Dead Redemption. Yeah, and like in the Grand Theft Auto series, you normally play the hard ass criminal, and you're against the cops. And here is a game from Rockstar that you are the cops. You are playing the war veteran who's come back from World War II and sort of reassesses about his life and joins the LAPD. Starts out in the traffic branch and works his way through all the major sort of crime divisions and gets to homicide. And it's set in 1947 Los Angeles. So it's that Hollywood golden era, when glitz and glamour and that were to the fore. But of course I wasn't around at that time, but apparently during that period Hollywood was very big on deceit and murder and does it
nasty underbellies.
Does it have that LA Confidential type feel? Or,
it does.
Yeah, was the other one Mulholland Falls?
Mulholland Falls, yes, it does. It has a very... When I saw it, I thought it was very sort of LA Confidential. And I guess sort of too, if you've read sort of Raymond Chandler novels and those sorts of things, that sort of, that real atmospheric sort of film noir type crime story. But it's a detective thriller where you play Cole Phelps, who is this young detective working his way through the ranks, and the mission that we saw on the Thursday that I was there was one called The Fallen Idol, which involved a car driving off an escarpment into a billboard, and Phelps had to go and investigate the crime scene and then question the driver and her young passenger, and then sort of get a whole lot of clues and put that together. And there's the thing that really takes you with it is that it's using something called motion scan, which is a technology that the Australian developer team Bondi, I think, have come up with, which essentially what it is instead of normal motion capture, which is the actors wear a suit and they have all those white dots on their head, and then it's extrapolated and put into the computer. What it does is that they sit in this booth, and it's got 32 or 36, I think it's 36 cameras right around their head. And so while they're doing their performance, it actually captures every angle of their head.
Cool.
And so, the big thing for the game is that, you search the crime scene, which you do, you can pick up evidence, but you also interrogate suspects, and you have to really pay attention to their body language, the intonation in their voice, perhaps they might purse their lips a wee bit when they're saying something, or they might look away uneasily, and you've got to try and determine, whether you believe them, whether you think they might be telling the truth and you want to push a wee bit more, or whether you actually think that no, they're actually lying and I'm going to accuse them of that, and I'm going to say, here, I've got this evidence which proves to the contrary.
Right.
So
from the limited, what I've seen of it is that it's really going to be crucial that you've got to pay attention to body language of these suspects, and it's that will add a really strong, investigative element to it, I think.
So rather than a control heavy sort of game, it's more of an observation heavy game.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there are still, there are still combat sequences and there's still some driving sequences, so you're still going to be falling into that sort of, that normal, genre where, you've got to have the action sequences and the vehicle sequences. But, when you're questioning the suspect, you've actually got to pay attention to, what they've said and how they've said it, and then you can determine with a button press whether, you're going to jump down their throat and say, no, you were telling lies because of whatever, So, yeah, you've got to really observe. And if you get, you might ask them 4 questions, and if you get them all correct, then you get more evidence, and then you get another lead, and you can move on to the next location. But if you get it wrong, so say you accuse them of being wrong, but they're actually right, you might miss a vital piece of information, then that might mean it might take you a little longer to get to your next objective because you might have to go and talk to somebody else. So yeah, observation really is the key here.
So it sounds like it requires a bit of patience as well. So I suppose this is Rockstar continuing with their adult-themed games.
Yeah, it's from what I've seen, it's not like Grand Theft Auto. You're not going to have heaps of side. There apparently will be side missions, but they will be. You might be driving along in your car and police dispatch will say, "Oh, we've got a crime at such and such. You can go and investigate." But it's not going to be a case if you're not going to have to go and collect 100 packages from all around the city, and then you'll get an achievement, or you're not going to shoot 100 pigeons or whatever. You can't drive your car off a bridge and try and do how many ramp jumps you can do and that sort of thing. It's a very story focused, very narrative driven. So I think if you actually go off the beaten track too much, I think Rockstar said that it was an open world, but I don't think it's an open world as you'd think, that you can go into every building, you can talk to every person. It's very narrative driven, very story driven. So it is a departure from previous Rockstar games. It's still got very, very adult content in it. Sexual themes and violence and language that's still very adult, but it's actually quite a departure from the previous Rockstar games.
So have you seen enough of it, or do you really want to get your hands on it and have a good bash?
I'd like to get my hands on it and give it a bash. I've only seen it for an hour and a half. That was what the section was, and it was a hands off, which means you had to sit there. You couldn't actually see or feel, how the gameplay felt, how, the gameplay mechanics worked. So it'll be good to get hold of it and actually, see whether it is as groundbreaking as the technology is showing that it could be. And the technology is pretty amazing too. It's not going to work for every game. You wouldn't be able to put it into a sports game probably, or a party game. But for a really atmospheric game that requires a lot of facial detail and that sort of thing, then I think this technology is really exciting. Actually,
looks like the same kind of technology they'll be using in movies as well.
Definitely, yeah. It could actually, I wouldn't be surprised if you start seeing it in movies as well. Especially animated movies and cartoons and that sort of thing. So very, very exciting. But it could. So May 20th. It's not long to go at all.
Not at all. LA Noire is the name of the game, and no doubt we will be checking out more of it in the future as well. Rockstar Games are putting it out, and Gerard Campbell has written a whole lot in the box today, which is the supplement inside the Press newspaper in Canterbury.